A pro-abortion witness calls Senator Hawley transphobic. Starbucks is fleeing from Democrat-ran cities. We have the homeless in Democrat-ran cities targeting civilians. Thor enthusiasts and fans are demanding a trigger warning before the film. And ICE is going to be performing abortions on illegal immigrants. All that and more here on The Bald Brad Show. Welcome to The Bald Brad Show. It is Wednesday, July 13th, and it also just so happens to be Amazon Prime Day, the last day to go over and get your deals. But I got a deal to propose all of you here at The Bald Brad Show. It is free, and as Donald Trump might say, it's the best deal possible. I wrote the art of the deal. You're not going to even find anything close to this. The guy's a miracle worker. Okay. The deal, again, is 100% for free. You would be supporting conservative, and the deal is for you to hit that like and subscribe button. And in return, you get the conservative news of the day, Monday through Friday, offered at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, folks. That's 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on the Bald Brad channel. And again, you'd be supporting conservative thought and ideas getting out there to new viewers who haven't seen our content or our channel. So your help would be greatly appreciated. With that being said, our lead story of the day is woke insanity, folks. Things are continually getting worse here in our discourse with the progressive left, where you can't even have a serious conversation anymore. And I'm not even saying this was a serious conversation like 2 decades ago, because it wasn't even a conversation to be had. But the thing is that the left say this is super serious, right? When you talk about trans or non-binary or LGBTQ plus community, they say all this stuff is super serious. So when you ask them a serious question, you just get called transphobic or racist or whatever it may be in terms of the topic that you're discussing with them. And the reason why this is important is because the Senate Judiciary Committee had a hearing regarding the basically the ramifications and the concerns of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And so Senator Hawley merely just stated that only women can get pregnant. And you had this UC Berkeley law professor and also abortion right advocate call him transphobic merely for just asking that question. We got a clip here for all of you. And it's crazy that this type of discourse is even taking place nowadays. But this is where we're at as a country. Without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to all of the witnesses for being here. Before I want to visit with you, Ms. Mensky, but before I do, I just want to clear one thing up. Professor Bridges, you said several times, you've used a phrase, I want to make sure I understand what you mean by it. You've referred to people with a capacity for pregnancy. Would that be women?
It's a good question.
Many women, cis women, have the capacity for pregnancy. Many cis women do not have the capacity for pregnancy. There are also trans men who are capable of pregnancy, as well as non-binary people who are capable of pregnancy.
So this isn't really a women's rights issue.
We can recognize that this impacts women while also recognizing that it impacts other groups. Those things are not mutually exclusive.
What other groups is she talking about? Can you let me know in the comments? And I really do mean this. I'm not just asking you to comment. I'm so baffled. They continue to talk about all these other groups that can get pregnant and have babies. I don't know what groups they're talking about, because only women can literally get pregnant and have babies. Men can't. I mean, if you want to talk about some sort of other species out there, sure. But we're talking right now about human beings. And as far as I'm aware, in all of human existence, no man has ever given birth. If you know of one, let me know in the comments down below as well, because I don't know a single story of that ever existing. Let's continue to roll it.
Senator Hawley.
Oh, so your view is that the core of this right then is about what?
So I want to recognize that your line of questioning is transphobic.
Oh, God.
And it opens up trans people to violence by not recognizing them.
Wow, you're saying that I'm opening up people to violence by asking whether or not women are the folks who can have pregnancies?
So
this is what they do. They make it a serious issue, right? Roe v. Wade's a serious issue. Abortion is a serious issue. Trans people are serious issues because every 1 in 5 of them try to commit suicide. Their suicidal rates upwards of like 40%, which is a serious thing. But then when you ask them a serious question that goes against their narrative, or that's tough for them to answer, and it might cut directly against their beliefs and their belief system, then all of a sudden that's when the name calling comes out. You notice that? If any of you have seen Matt Walsh's film, What is a Woman? The same thing happens to him. Even as simple as what is true, they can't answer and they lose their minds, and then they get all uncomfortable and start squirming and saying that you're harassing them or you're committing them harm, and that not just physical harm, but also mental harm. And they just act like knuckleheads. You guys, to put this in perspective, again, this is a law professor at UC Berkeley. If you have any doubt that you can be anything that you want to be in this country, just look at what's taking place right now. This person got a law degree. I mean, how the hell did she? I mean, the bar can't be that hard, right? If this type of person, a person that has stuff in her brain thinking that a man can give birth, I mean, we could do anything here. You know, listening to her almost makes you think you can defy gravity and start flying around the world. This is mind blowing. Let's continue.
I want to note that 1 out of 5 transgender persons have attempted suicide. So I think it's important
because of my line of questioning. So we can't talk about it
because denying that trans people exist and pretending not to know that they exist.
I'm denying that trans people exist by asking you if you're talking about women having pregnant.
Why is she asking, are you? She just made a claim. She just told him that he was. And so he's merely asking, how is my line of questioning saying that they don't exist? And she's like, are you? Are you? Like, hey, where you at? Are you? Like, why are you acting like that? I don't get it. I don't get it.
Do you believe that men can get pregnant?
No, I don't think women can get
So you are
pregnant.
denying that trans people like this?
And that leads to violence? Is this how you run your classroom? Are students allowed to question you? Or are they also treated like this? Where
No,
they're told that they're opening up people to violence?
We have a good time in my
questioning.
class. You should join.
I bet.
You might learn a lot.
Wow, I would learn a lot. I've learned a lot just in this exchange.
Absolutely.
Extraordinary.
It is an extraordinary exchange, that's for sure. That should worry all of you, because when people go to college now, this is what they're going to get. I mean, you try to wrap your head around, right? Because lawyers are not dumb. I worked with lawyers when I was an accountant. There was a litigation department at the firm I worked for. A lot of people I worked for were CPAs, right? If you see somebody that is either a lawyer, passed the bar exam, or somebody that passed a CPA exam, they're not idiots. But clearly something has happened in our discourse, or whether it's in our academics or the bar exam or the CPA, where these knuckleheads are passing these things where they think that men can give birth, that women aren't the only ones that can, and that a man can just morph into a woman, and then a woman can morph into a man. And when you question them on it, you're a transphobe, or you're all these other names like a xenophobic, racist, or whatever the hell it may be for that specific conversation. It is so baffling. And it's a scary time to be living in, because if you can't have conversation, then how can you seek out the truth? And the problem is that when you actually quote truth, facts, then all of a sudden your facts and truth aren't real anymore. And you'll be removed off Twitter, YouTube, social media platforms. The left will silence you because they want their reality to be pushed upon people and accepted. But when you push the truth, the real reality and the facts, you get silenced for it. That's a scary time to be living in, folks. This is some Orwellian crap taking place. You see people like Jordan B. Peterson being banned, along with Dave Rubin. You have the editor-in-chief of the Federalist being banned for merely just saying that men are men and women are women. I mean, that has always been the case, but this is the discourse that we have now. We have UC Berkeley professors saying all this stuff. This is some wild, wild things taking place domestically in America. You go out there, and Matt Walsh did this, you go out to other countries and they think you're crazy. I mean, some of these people are pretty primitive, right? They're still living in huts. They don't have TVs, cell phone, or anything. They're still living off the land in Africa and other places, other continents. And they literally just laugh at you. So that's never a good thing when you have people going, what the hell are you talking about? That cannot happen. That's impossible. Never seen it. So this is where we're at. And this is the type of stuff that's being indoctrinated within your children, within the kids in the school system, whether it be at a college level or whether it be at K through 12. This is where they're getting it. You don't just have these thoughts magically appear in your mind. It has to be pushed somewhere, and it's being pushed in the school system. It's being pushed on Disney Plus. It's being pushed on all of Hollywood social platforms, whether that's through their streaming services or their Facebook pages, whatever it may be. Their kids are being inculcated with these values, and then they turn into like this. Do any of you want your kid to turn out like that? Because I sure in heck don't. Jeez Louise. Well, speaking of just craziness, the left sat there for years, right, under Donald Trump, and took over Portland, Seattle, Los Angeles, and they just completely shellacked and at times just lit on fire some of these stores in these cities. Remember when there's an MSNBC reporter going, it was mostly peaceful protests, and there was like 5 buildings behind him on fire? So during the whole Black Lives Matter protest, you had Chop and Chaz take place with Antifa. They went after like Starbucks stores, Walgreens, Rite Aids, Louis Vuitton, Bloomingdale's. They were stealing purses, chapstick, toothpaste. And like you had these reporters come out and say, oh, well, they have to feed their children as they're taking deodorant, watches. Yeah, they got to feed their children. And they said this is all just because of the injustices that happened in the past to some of these people, which you can't even totally track because some of them, yeah, they may be black, but it doesn't mean that they were ever, their family lineage was ever slaves or anything of the sort. So this is the type of narrative they're going to push. And the news story here is Starbucks is closing 16 stores. And wait till you listen to the language of what they're using, because they're closing this store due to the violence and people just harassing employees there, but also literally destroying their stores themselves. And what they're calling this is high frequency of challenging incidences. It's just crazy. It's crazy. And wait till you hear about where all these Starbucks are located and where they're leaving from. So Starbucks is permanently closing 16 locations across the US by the end of this month in July. And this comes from the Wall Street Journal. Quote, after careful consideration, we're closing some stores and locations that have experienced a high volume of challenging incidents. I'm sorry. It's just the language is ridiculous. That make it unsafe to continue to operate. To open new locations with safer conditions, a Starbucks spokesperson told Insider. The incidences involved drug use in stores by customers and other members of the public reported by workers. Oh, because the homeless problem is an issue, and you have people coming in and destroying your own property, destroying your stores, but these are just called, challenging incidences. It's almost like the verbiage that the White House uses in terms of immigration, that it's just a challenge, it's not a crisis. If it was just a challenge, it's probably a challenge you can overcome, but you don't want to. So now you're like, oh, this has gotten really bad because you're supporting all these woke ideas, and now you got to get out of the places that support those same woke ideas. The closures are a move to make Starbucks locations safer for customers and employees, the company said, echoing a letter from the senior VPs of U.S. operations, Debbie Stroud and Dennis Nelson, sent to employees on July 11th. The company also gives local leaders the authority to close bathrooms, reduce seating, and take other measures to keep conditions safe for employees. Now, if you had to take a guess, let me know in the comments before we reveal all this. Which cities do you think specifically most of these 16 stores are located in? I might have already given the answer. I don't remember. I ramble a lot. But these 16 stores, let me know which cities. At the very least, let me know if it's Republican-ran cities or Democrat-ran cities. Now, again, we're a conservative news outlet. I'm sure you can guess where we're raising this issue from. I've been talking about it for literally over a year now. Yes, folks, you are correct. Portland, Seattle, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. All Democrat ran, all more than Democrat ran, progressive left ran. So Santa Monica, Hollywood, First in Los Angeles, Hollywood and Vine, Oceanfront Walk in Santa Monica, Second in San Pedro in Los Angeles, 10th and Chestnut in Philadelphia. You also have multiple locations in Portland, multiple 5 locations in Seattle, Washington. It's nuts. And you got one over there by the Union Station and train concourse in Washington, D.C. So if you're in any of those areas, one, get the hell out of there. What are you doing living there in the first place? And 2, your Starbucks are closing. So, and we've seen this discourse, right? We've seen this type of environment taking place in these stores. We have videotapes and compilations galore of all this happening. So this is what the Democrats want. This is what they want their cities to look like. And it's not just Starbucks that is leaving. Walgreens left and closed a bunch of stores previously about a year ago because of all this taking place. Where in California, you have Prop 47, where you could just basically go into any convenience store, steal about $950 worth of stuff, and nothing's going to happen. You can literally just walk out of the store with duffel bags full of clothing, full of goods. And when, somebody of the other race, say a black person, doesn't have to be just a black person doing this. I mean, there's white people that do it as well, and so Asians. But, it's because of some sort of injustice that happened to them in the past. And so they deserve this. They deserve to steal all this stuff so they can climb up the ladder and they can make good. So, yes, Starbucks closing these Democrat-ran cities. And something I've also talked about in these Democrat-ran cities, which brings me to my next headline here, is you had an Olympic medalist attacked by a homeless person with a metal pipe. And this happened in Los Angeles. Mind you, the Olympics is going to be in Los Angeles soon. And there are kids that are coming off buses to the ground riddled with homeless people shooting up fentanyl. There was a clip on Instagram. I'm going to see if I can import it into this show here, where there's just masses of kids coming off this bus, public transportation, into a sea of homeless people doing the fentanyl crawl. And if you don't know what that is, the fentanyl crawl is basically where you're passed out and you're kind of like leaned forward and you're like that for hours and sometimes an entire day. And this is happening all across Los Angeles.
Hey, bye, kids. Y'all get home safe, okay? Y'all get home safe. My little partners out here, get home safe, all right? I'm sorry y'all gotta be going through see all this shit. Okay? Get home safe.
Get home safe.
They gotta walk through this shit. Come on, man. These little kids gotta walk through this shit. This shit is crazy.
It is wild. She's not the first person to be attacked by homeless people. This happens all the time. You go down to Venice Beach, there's videotape of them attacking people with hockey sticks, planks of wood, other metal pipes themselves. They will throw their feces at you. There was a famous case a couple years ago where a lady was stopped at traffic and a homeless person pulled her out of her car and threw hot diarrhea that was in a coffee can all over her. I mean, it was all over her face. Some of you might be laughing, some of you might not, but this is what we're dealing with in California. There's syringes and razor blades in kids' playgrounds. You literally have to metal detect it, sometimes on a monthly basis, to remove them. There's an app for Southern California that literally tracks the feces and drug use across Los Angeles and Southern California. Do any of your states have that, by the way? Because I only know of Democrat-ran states that have these types of apps where you have to track and make sure you're not stepping in feces. Savannah Hernandez of Sav Says, she was on Blaze Media for a while, and she was the producer of Slightly Offensive. And she was in California for 2 hours, and she literally couldn't believe her eyes. And she within 2 hours almost stepped in human feces herself, seeing people just riddled with drugs everywhere. It's completely mind-blowing. So the headline here is a Team USA medalist said that she was injured in an unprovoked attack from a homeless man outside a restaurant in Los Angeles. Kim Glass recounted the alleged attack on her Instagram account and showed some of her injuries. And it's honestly, it's a pretty bad injury. I mean, that had to be bleeding everywhere, eyes completely swollen shut, and that's a pretty good gash. If anybody's seen a nice fillet open on the head, that thing is bleeding everywhere. You could have an extremely small paper cut injury almost on the head, and it's just going to bleed like wild. So I can't imagine what that would have looked like. She says that she was with her friend and left a restaurant when she noticed a homeless man that was acting strangely. She allegedly ran up to her as she was saying goodbye to her friend and threw a metal rod at her face. Before I knew it, a big metal bolt like a pipe hit me in the face, she said on an Instagram video. It happened so fast, he literally flung it from the street. He was not even close to me at all, she said, describing the man as having hateful eyes. So this happens repeatedly. And she goes on here to describe, how she had multiple fractures in her face, which is freaking horrifying. But some of these homeless people commit crimes, obviously. They steal things, go into Walgreens, Bloomingdale's, commit the crimes for Prop 47 that we're talking about, and never get prosecuted, by the way. And these people are just left on the streets. And to give this perspective, and you guys will know this the statistic that I'm quoting for those that are frequent viewers of the Bald Brad Show, is we have 1/4 of the entire United States homeless population in Los Angeles alone. 1/4. You're talking thousands and thousands of people. If you were to go on our streets here in Los Angeles, go near like Hollywood or wherever, I mean, hell, you can go pretty much anywhere. You're going to see entire camps. Like, not like just the camps you're thinking of, like when you go to a campground. Think of like tent on top of like another tent on top of another tent for like blocks, pouring out into the streets. They have entire beddings, like bed systems, like furniture, like drawers you could pull out that you get at home. They have lamps for some reason that aren't even plugged in that make it look like an actual bedroom. Rugs. It is crazy what's going on here. And these camps light on fire consistently. They attack one another. There's entire women getting raped, which is so odd to me. You have this Democrat Party that's so pro-women, but yet you got women left and right being raped in these camps, and just they don't want to do anything about it. They want to keep them there. They're fine. Nothing's going on. Nothing's wrong. Yeah, you got prostitution, drug use taking place. Things are so bad in terms of drug use that literally in Los Angeles, and Joe Biden as well wants to do this, they want to provide them safe places to do drugs. They want to offer them syringes and everything so they can be safe in those areas. This is where we're at. This is where the Democrat Party is at. And Joe Biden got 81 million votes. A dude that can't even lift up his feet, shuffles his feet around the White House, where literally his aides are worried about him tripping over a cord. When have you ever heard of that? Where your White House aides and the staff around you are freaking out because they're scared that you're going to trip over a cord and die. That's where we're at in terms of the Democrat Party and their disastrous policies taking over our U.S. cities. And speaking of the left, man, all of this is just, all the headlines today are just so baffling. So, remember how this trigger warning thing took place? I want to say around Trump time. This is probably around 2013 and on, really, when you started hearing about trigger warnings taking place within college campuses. Well, there's some spoilers here regarding Thor, so if you haven't seen it yet, kind of skip past this article. It's not a major spoiler by any means, but Thor fans are all upset about an emotional scene, and they're telling the company for this film, Marvel, that they need to put a trigger warning for the film. Now, I saw the film. It was okay. I wouldn't say it was the best Thor film by any means. You kind of get what you get, and there's definitely LGBTQ stuff in it, that's for sure. Like men with men and having Korg and all of this stuff, and the other girl, the Valkyrie chick, dating women. It's just, it's definitely pushed on you. Like I said, it's not the greatest film. It's a rental. But it says Thor Love and Thunder is making waves at the box office, but fans are enraged in a Twitter war over whether the film needs a trigger warning due to some emotional moments. Grow up, grow a pair. It's a freaking movie. The scene in question depicts Natalie Portman's character, and this is where we get kind of the spoiler. It's not really much of one, folks. Scientist Jane Foster finds out she has stage 4 cancer, and you get this at like the beginning of the film. The character then puts on a superhero suit and becomes Thor. New York Post reported Jane later goes through chemotherapy. And because of the way they portrayed this chemotherapy, trying to make it look somewhat realistic, they're just completely like, oh my God, oh, what's happening? We just got done going over a story where literally homeless people are attacking citizens as well as Olympic medalists in the streets, throwing pipes at them, doing fentanyl in front of children, doing drugs in front of the children, prostitution in front of children. You have drag people going to high schools and doing performances in front of children half naked. And these are, men that are dressed as women, dancing like a strip club. And you're complaining about a freaking movie portraying somebody with stage 4 cancer? As you have women making out with each other on TV all the time. You have freaking Baymax on Disney Plus having people buying tampons when they're a man for themselves. And this is what you want a trigger warning for? Give me a damn break. The whole cancer storyline in Thor 4 is traumatic for some viewers in such an extent that they're asking Marvel to include a trigger warning on the content. Quote, no spoilers, but Thor Love and Thunder should have a trigger warning for graphic depiction of cancer and the fact that we didn't know going into it is atrocious. So they're supposed to just reveal all these things about the film. Kind of a main point for Thor as well, because it's an overarching story that continues through the film. They're supposed to reveal that to all of you beforehand. What a bunch of idiots. Quote, it has practically ruined any ability for me emotionally care about the movie since I felt like I had to shut off any feelings off to protect myself from connecting with the content and needing to leave part away through. Why go to any movies then? I mean, that is literally the whole purpose of a movie, is to emotionally connect with the characters in the film so you care about them or you don't care about them, and you progress through that movie, whether it's a feel-good movie or not. I mean, that's the whole purpose. So what a stupid, it stopped me from emotionally caring for that person because I had to shut off myself to it. Oh, God. Folks, remember the men that stormed the beaches of Normandy, and now you got people like this posting idiotic things on Twitter? almost, I'm not saying it does, it almost makes you feel like if we were to ever go to war that we wouldn't win it because these are the people that would take up arms. Or maybe not. Maybe they'd cower and be sent to jail. I don't know. Sorry, kids. A movie studio is under no obligation to give you a trigger warning that spoils the film for everyone, just in case. You have the internet. Read the spoilers if you are worried or that there might be something you are worried about. 100% agree. As a cancer survivor, I find this extremely stupid. People's reactions to the suggestions of trigger warnings for the Thor truly make me realize how cold, disgusting, and cruel humans can be. One person mused about the response. People deserve to know what emotions they want to feel when going to potentially have a good time at the movies. I mean, we live in the stupidest time. Can we just be honest with one another? The time we live in, it's the greatest time, don't get me wrong, in like all of human history to exist. But in terms of like dumb people, this is probably the dumbest time. It's just, I mean, with so much technology out there and just the internet alone, where literally at the palm of your hand, you could find out anything you want and learn about anything you want. You still have people running around like this. And maybe in a sense, that's how good we have it in America, is that this is the type of stuff where we're at now, where people are fighting over men can be women and women can be men and vice versa. Whereas like there's actual evil in the world in other places where people are literally being chained into cells and lowered into the water and drowned. Some people are literally being flayed alive as we speak right now in the Middle East. In the Middle East, as we speak right now, there's still slaves. There's still slaves all across the world, upwards of like 40 million. But this is the stuff they're going to talk about. I would also like to point out there's a famous story I always disclose here on the podcast, and it comes from Nikki Haley, the old UN ambassador of Donald Trump. She's Indian, by the way. And the reason why I point that out is because they always call Trump racist, but yet he hires people from all over the world to work for his company, as well as work for him when he was the president of the United States. But she has a story in her book. I think it's called All Due Respect. And I believe that's, I get her book, Kayleigh McEnany's and Sarah Huckabee Sanders' book all mixed up. But I think it's with All Due Respect is the title of her book. And she talks about how she was in this village and there was all these women that just wouldn't talk to her. They were scared, they were frantic, they were fearful. And finally they warmed up to her and they were telling her on how they're getting raped all the time by these men. And these men are just consistently beating them, hurting them, sometimes even killing them. And there's one woman that shared a story with her that her newborn baby was thrown into the fire and she had to watch it die. And then as it was crispy, she had to eat it in front of these men. And this happened multiple times with multiple of her children. But I bring that up because you see all that stuff going on around the world, right? And this is what the left wants to focus on. They care about slavery. They care about all the injustices that America did do, and they were evil. But as these injustices are taking place around the world, they're not speaking up at all. You know, they want to just crap on America all the time and ask for trigger warnings before films because somebody put on a little bit of makeup and depicted a person with stage 4 cancer. So that's where we're at, is that. And speaking of other things, where we're at, ICE officials will facilitate abortions for detained illegal immigrants. This is our last story of the day, folks. And it's just, you think things can't get lower. You think things can't get like bottom level, kind of like Joe Biden's poll ratings continue to drop. You think that they can't get lower, but they just do. So President Joe Biden's administration will reportedly instruct ICE detention centers around the country to basically give illegal immigrant women that are in federal custody a right to abortion and should be transferred to receive one if they're being detained in a state where abortion is illegal. This is where your tax dollars are going, by the way. Not just to feed them, not just to house them, not just to clothe them, not just for the transportation of them, but now you have to pay for their abortion as well. Welcome to 2022 Democrats America. A leaked memo. So this wasn't supposed to be kind of out there for everybody to know about. A leaked memo from U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Acting Director Tay Johnson that was reported by the Wall Street Journal instructs that ICE detention centers ensure that pregnant illegal immigrants have access to abortions at taxpayer expense. The memo reportedly cites the Supreme Court's decision in Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization, which overturned Roe v. Wade and returned the abortion issue to the states, which is why they have to send them and transport them to the interior of the United States or other avenues on the coastal areas like California to get their abortions on taxpayer dime. This memorandum serves as a reminder of existing ICE policies and standards requiring that pregnant individuals detained in ICE immigration custody have access to full reproductive health care. What's reproductive about that? That's what I'm so confused, and I've tried to do reading on this on the pro-choice advocates. And mind you, I used to be pro-choice. For the vast majority of my life, I was pro-choice. All the way up through college, I was pro-choice. It wasn't until really I started diving deeper into the pro-life movement and actually doing my research that I switched on it. And partly it had to do because in college, I did become a Christian at the time. I found Jesus. But that was only half the story. The other half was actually doing research and looking at the reproduction of, health, a human being, all those things. But when they say it's a full reproductive health care, I just don't see how that's the case, because what's being reproduced? Nothing's being produced. I mean, there is a baby being produced, don't get me wrong, but I'm talking in terms of actually giving birth. Nothing's happening. If anything, you're deproducing something, right? You're getting rid of it. You're throwing it in the trash. So it's always baffled me with the pro-choice movement. I just don't understand full reproductive health care. It doesn't click for me. This is also a reminder that pursuant to existing ICE policy, it may be necessary to transfer a detained pregnant individual within an area of responsibility or to another area of responsibility when appropriate and practical in order to ensure such access. ICE policy requires that the agency provide abortions to migrant women who are pregnant by rape or incest or medical emergencies, the journal reports. So what's also a problem about this is that we're basically paying for some people's crimes that never happened in the United States in the first place. And so I bring this up because that's partly the reason why Joe Biden wants to get rid of Title 42 and also the Remain in Mexico policy, is because right there on the border, when there was camps there and they were trying to wait for their papers to be filed and reviewed, is that these women were getting raped in these camps by these other immigrants. And so what they're doing is, because they're getting raped and also having incest, is now they're pouring across the border and getting their abortions paid for that way on taxpayer dollars. And so because those crimes, rather than, if you're going to get an abortion, rather than do it in Mexico, where the crime was ultimately committed for the most part, that they're just going to pour over here and now you get to pay for it. So I hope you're all happy now regarding Joe Biden's another business dealings that he's made now with Mexico and illegal immigrants, because it's only going to get matters worse here. And I do mean worse, because he has over 200,000 people pouring across the border every single month. About 3 million illegal immigrants will be in this country by the end of this year, in Joe Biden's second year in office. Second year. It's so baffling me how this is not like a major issue to most Americans. On a poll wise, it is. Like statistically in polls, this is the number one issue for most Americans. But the ratings for immigration, whenever I do an episode, aren't there. And it could be because I don't have enough subscribers, but that goes for anybody. That's why a lot of people don't post videos on immigration. It just doesn't get the views. And I don't know if there's suppression happening from YouTube or whatever it may be. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's not just my channel. It's Ben Shapiro's channel. It's Steven Crowder. It's Savannah Hernandez. If you look at her, she's done literal reporting, frontline reporting on immigration, showing actual immigrants from her own camera coming across the border, and she just doesn't get the views as well. So it really makes me wonder if there's shadowing going on from YouTube or from these leftist-dominated outlets where they're not allowing this type of algorithm to push out illegal immigration in what it should be, because like I said, it just doesn't get the views. So on Friday, the president announced an executive order intended to expand access to abortion pills, protect the right of women to travel from pro-life states to pro-choice states if they want an abortion, and have federal agencies take other actions that could undermine state enforcement of abortion restrictions. If you want to see how much Joe Biden's willing to bend the knee for anybody and everybody just to get in a vote and support him, it's abortion. He used to be anti-abortion for like the longest time. He wasn't for it, and now he is. Very similar, kind of like how Hillary Clinton was for certain things and then she flip-flopped. And this is why I say he's going to bend the knee to whoever he can just to make sure that he's not ousted or that he can get your vote. And the reason why I say ousted is because I believe he's fully in the pocket of China, which is why you're seeing him being so lax on China, not investigating COVID-19 and the Wuhan virus. We haven't seen anything on that. He's given them 1 million barrels of oil, and those oils just so happen to go to a firm that Hunter Biden has investment dealings with, but we're not going to talk about any of that because we get removed off YouTube. Lastly, Biden called the Supreme Court abortion decision totally wrong-headed. and criticized it as an exercise in raw political power. Coming from the guy that literally, through his power, is driving this country into the ground, whether it be immigration issue, inflation by throwing out trillions of dollars of COVID-19 checks, causing us in the situation we're at now, or using his power not to push more domestic oil production, or using his power just to randomly pull out of Afghanistan and allow the Taliban to run roughshod over an entire country, rape and pillage women, perform incest over there, kill a bunch of people, behead a bunch of people, also at the same time leaving Americans behind, hundreds of them behind, if not thousands, depending on what time period you want to look at during the pulling out of Afghanistan. And lastly, having freaking 13 American soldiers dying because of your idiotic pulling out policy. But he's going to talk to us about the wrong-headedness of it and an exercise in political power. Get out of here with that. This guy's so freaking hypocritical, it's ridiculous. And the left are going to continue to support him. So there you have it, folks. There is all the news that we're bringing you today. Again, grab onto that deal that we're supporting here at the Bald Brad Show by hitting that like and subscribe button. It does push conservative thought out there to new viewers who haven't seen our content or our channel, so your help would be greatly appreciated. With that being said, I will see you tomorrow here on the Bald Brad Show.